All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're tackling a topic that never seems to get old, am I right?
Definitely a popular one.
UFOs. But hold on. We're not just digging into the usual grainy photos and shaky videos this time. We're going deeper.
Way deeper.
We're talking about the people behind those alleged sightings. Like, what if there's a certain type of person who's more likely to see a UFO?
That's precisely what we're diving into today, right? There's some really fascinating new research on this actual scientific study on the personality traits of people who claim to have seen UAPs.
And it's legit science, by the way. We're not talking about some conspiracy theory blog post.
Oh, absolutely not. Peer-reviewed, published in a respectable journal, the whole 9 yards.
Okay, so hit me with the basics then. What was the study trying to figure out exactly?
So the core question was, is there a specific UFO personality type? Is there something, anything, that makes some people more likely to have these experiences?
And how'd they go about answering that? Did they, like, strap people to lie detectors and flash pictures of saucers at them?
Ha! I wish. No, it was a survey. They got over 200 people to participate.
All right, solid sample size for something like this. I'm guessing they didn't just ask, have you seen a UFO?
Though. Right. They dug into all sorts of personality traits, used standardized questionnaires and everything. It's pretty fascinating stuff. But here's the kicker. Over half of the people they surveyed claimed to have actually seen a UAP.
Whoa, seriously. That's way higher than those general polls you always hear about.
Way higher. Which really makes you wonder what's going on there. Like, are people who are already into UFOs more likely to see something unusual just because they're, looking for it?
Right. Or does being into this stuff somehow attract weird experiences? Like, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Exactly. And here's another layer to this whole thing. Even though so many people in this study said they'd seen something truly bizarre, only a tiny fraction ever actually officially reported it.
Get out of here. Seriously. So, like, we can have this whole iceberg of UFO sightings that nobody's talking about.
That's exactly what it seems like. Get this. Only 14% of the self-reported sightings were ever mentioned to any organization, let alone somewhere official, like, say, the government.
So we're talking about people seeing things, but then what, just keeping it to themselves? Why on earth would you do that? If I saw a UFO, I think I'd be shouting it from the rooftops. Well, maybe. Why are people staying quiet? What did the study say about that?
Well, think about it for a second. There are a lot of reasons you might not want to shout about seeing a UFO from the rooftops. A lot of people said they simply didn't even know where to report it, which, honestly, fair enough.
That's true. It's not like there's a UFO hotline, or is there?
Right. And then, of course, there's the fear of being ridiculed, not being taken seriously.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one. Imagine telling your friends you saw a UFO and they all just start laughing. Ouch.
And you've got another group of people who, even if they did see something truly unexplained, they still didn't see the point in reporting it. Maybe figured nobody would believe them anyway.
So we've got fear of being ridiculed, the mystery of where to actually report it if you wanted to, and on top of that, a sense of, futility. Like, why even bother? Talk about an uphill battle for getting these sightings on the record. And this is all before we even get to what makes these people tick.
And that's what makes all this research so interesting. It's like, yeah, people see stuff, but then who's actually speaking up about it? That's where this study gets really fascinating. It actually dives into the personalities of the people who reported sightings.
Okay, so spill it. Is there, a typical UFO witness profile? Like the kind of person you'd expect?
Actually, get ready to be surprised because the findings were kind of unexpected. The study found that people who are really agreeable, easy to get along with, and also really conscientious.
Wait, conscientious? Like organized?
Yeah.
Responsible?
Exactly. Those folks and people who are really open to new experiences, they were actually more likely to report UFO sightings.
Hold up. So we're not talking about the stereotypical conspiracy theorist in a tinfoil hat. It's the people who are super down to earth and open-minded.
Yeah, it kind of flips the script, doesn't it? It really challenges those old stereotypes about who's seeing UFOs.
Okay, so it's not just that they're open-minded and organized. What else? Anything else stand out in these folks?
Well, this is where it gets even more interesting. Remember how we talked about those agreeable, conscientious, open to new experiences folks?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Well, they also tended to be really low in neuroticism.
So not just organized and open-minded, but also, really even-keeled, not prone to freaking out.
Exactly. In fact, being prone to, negative emotions, it was actually negatively correlated with reporting UFO sightings.
Wow. Okay. Now that's wild. So you're telling me the calm, cool, and collected folks amongst us are the ones seeing the weird stuff. Oh, it makes you wonder, right? Like, are they just more likely to notice things because they're not, like, spiraling about something else?
It's a great question. It could be that they're just more observant, less likely to dismiss something unusual, or maybe, and this is just a thought, but maybe being more emotionally stable, it helps them process these unusual experiences without freaking out.
Ooh, that's a good point. Like, if you're already on edge, seeing something bizarre in the sky might just send you over the edge. But if you're pretty grounded, you might be more like, huh, that's weird. Let me take another look.
Exactly. It shows how complex this whole thing is, right? Like how our personality, how we see the world, it all plays a part in how we experience, well, everything, really.
So it's not as simple as UFO people are like this. It's more about how certain traits might make you more likely to notice these things and then actually talk about them.
That's a great way to put it. And it gets even more interesting because they didn't just look at individual traits. The study identified 3 different personality profiles within the people who reported sightings.
Okay, so we've got our calm, cool, and collected crew. But what about the other profiles? Were any of them more like those stereotypes we were talking about? You know, like maybe more prone to hallucinations or something?
Funny you should ask because remember we were just talking about the people who were high in openness, agreeableness, conscientiousness, and low in neuroticism.
Yeah, our OACE group. I'm learning the lingo.
Right. So that's actually what they called that group in the study, OACE. Then there was the average group, which, fell somewhere in the middle on most of the traits. And finally, there was the neurotic schizotypy group.
Okay, so that last one definitely sounds a bit more like what we might expect if we were just going off those old stereotypes. But here's the big question. Did any of these groups really stand out when it came to actually reporting a UAP sighting? Well, yeah. What about our OACE crew? Did they end up seeing more weird stuff than everyone else?
That's the thing they totally did. The OACE folks were actually way more likely to report having seen something compared to that average group.
So does that mean, like, being open-minded and organized somehow makes you more likely to see a UFO?
That's the question, isn't it? It could be that those personality traits, being open, conscientious, good with people, maybe those things actually make you more likely to see something unusual. Or maybe they just make you more likely to talk about it afterwards.
Yeah, maybe if you're more tuned into your surroundings or more willing to consider that something weird could happen, you're more likely to actually notice it when it does.
That's what's so cool about this kind of research. It really makes you think. We can't say for sure what's going on, but it gives us some clues.
So it's not like if you have these traits, boom, UFO. But it's still a pretty big deal, right? Like, how much more likely were the OACE people to have sightings?
Let's put it this way. Imagine 100 people from that average group we were talking about. Based on this study, you might expect around 50 of them to say they'd seen a UFO.
Okay, that makes sense given what we were talking about earlier.
Right. Now picture 100 people from the OACE group. We're talking maybe 65 of them reporting sightings, so it's not a guarantee. But those personality traits do seem to make a difference.
Okay, that's a pretty big jump. But I'm guessing even with these findings, the study doesn't say personality is the whole story, right? There's got to be more to it.
You're totally right. It's not like personality is the magic key to seeing UFOs or anything. And the study itself says there are definitely some limitations to what they could conclude.
Like what? What kind of limitations are we talking about?
Well, for one, they were relying on people to accurately remember and report their own experiences. And we all know memory can be a little fuzzy sometimes, right?
Yeah, totally. Plus, people might not always be totally honest about what they've seen, especially with a topic like this.
Right. Plus, while the group they studied was a decent size, having an even bigger group would give us even more confidence in the results.
So, more research is needed. We love to hear that on the deep dive. But even with those limitations, this study opens up some really interesting questions. What are some of the big takeaways you're left with?
For me, it just shows how complex this whole topic really is. It's not just about what people are seeing, but also about who those people are, how they see the world, and what makes them more or less likely to talk about what they've experienced.
And don't forget, this study focused on the who, the people, reporting sightings, not the what. It didn't even try to figure out what people were actually seeing, which is a whole other deep dive waiting to happen.
Right. There could be so many other things going on, environmental factors, cultural influences, maybe things we haven't even thought of yet.
Here's something else I've been wondering about. The study didn't look at whether seeing something strange might actually make someone more open-minded. Like maybe a UFO sighting is what made them that OACE type.
Whoa, that's a really interesting thought. Maybe it works both ways, you know? Maybe our personalities make us more open to certain experiences, but then those experiences actually change how we see things going forward. It's like a two-way street.
It's kind of like that saying, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Mm.
If you're really into UFOs, you might be more likely to see a weird light in the sky and think, oh, that's a UFO.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which isn't to say those experiences aren't real, but it shows how much our own perceptions shape how we see the world around us.
Which is what makes this whole thing so endlessly fascinating. It's a puzzle with pieces from psychology, sociology, maybe even physics, all mixed together.
That's a great way to put it. And like any good puzzle, it's way more fun to try and solve it with a friend.
And that's what we're all about here. So, to everyone listening, the next time you see something strange in the sky, something that makes you go, huh, what was that? Don't just brush it off. Take a second to really think about it. Maybe it was a bird, maybe it was a drone, or maybe, just maybe, it was something a little more unexplained. Until next time on The Deep Dive, keep those minds open, keep those eyes on the skies, and remember, there's always more to explore.